G'day viewers, my name's Graeme Stevenson and I'd like to invite you to come on a journey of creativity and learning and adventure through the series Colour in Your Life. There's an artist in every family throughout the world, and lots of times there's an artist deep down inside all of us as well. So grab your kids, your brothers, your sisters, your aunties, uncles and mums and dads and come and see how some of the best artists in Australia do what they do.
Well, hi folks, and welcome back to Colour in Your Life. Well, we are in Sydney and at St Leonards, and we are at the studio of Sandra Blackburne. Sandra?
Hi Graeme.
Welcome to the show.
Thank you.
Sandra is a fabulous landscape artist and has this wonderful interconnection between who we are as people and what the Australian landscape represents, and she's quite amazing in what she does. But she's also got a real history as far as her academic situation is concerned, and she's also completed a degree in English literature with majors in sociology and art history, and then did an honours degree in Australian literature and the language of art, and also did an honours degree on Patrick White, one of our great literaturists in Australia. Just an amazing history as far as a lady and an artist is concerned. Incredible background. That's quite amazing. What inspired you? I mean, apart from your academia, but what inspired you to become an artist in the first place?
My first awareness, I suppose, of the visual art was when I was about 7 or 8 years old, and we were staying with some friends in the country, and a visitor was there, and she started drawing one of the horses in the paddock, and the horse moved after about 5 or 10 minutes, and she said, "What a shame, I'm just going to have to do an ordinary horse now." And I thought, ordinary? That was amazing what she had done. It was like something appearing like magic on the page. So that was my inspiration, and I've really been drawing ever since, and in the art world ever since, in one way or another.
Yeah, and you've had a fantastic history involved in creative industries of some sort anyway, in what you've been doing ever since you're a young woman. But what first inspired you to sort of literally get in the car and go out and look at the Australian landscape? Can you remember that first day?
Oh, I've always loved the outdoors. I'm not really an inside person in that sense, and I've always felt most comfortable outside. That sense of peace that you get when you go outside get off the freeway, the motorway, and into those country lanes and those wide open spaces. They're the things that really appeal to me.
And part of your work is, and we'll show this as we go through the process, is that you do a lot of plein air sketches in regards to what you do before you get back into the studio.
Yes.
That's an essential part of your work, isn't it?
I believe so. Taking photographs, you may as well just do a fabulous photograph, and for me, if I just try to replicate a photograph or a scene photographically, it's not really putting the real person into it. And I think every artist would probably agree with me that it's something of yourself that goes into those paintings, not just the landscape itself. So.
Amazing, and they are really deep and vibrant and meaningful works. You'll see that as we go through the process today. But we're going to make a start. One of the great things of being an artist, and one of the scariest parts, is a blank canvas. It's like, there's a blank canvas, what are we going to do? But we're going to make a start and actually utilise some of these plein air sketches and drawings that Sandra has done to create a beautiful masterpiece today. So come along for the ride, guys. All right, Sandra, now you've done your preliminary sketch, your plein air sketch, and I was noticing before that you had some Matisse paint and it was a coloured gesso, is that correct?
That's right, yes. I like the coloured gesso because it, unlike anything else you might want to sketch in, such as charcoal, you can't get rid of charcoal, but coloured gesso you can, and then you can paint over it with your oil so that your next layers as they come across.
Fantastic.
So I'm just sort of fixing a position where I want this major tree to come to.
And just referring back and forth to your original sketch.
Yes. These are very solid gums in the creek beds, so I really wanted to get that feeling of strength of the tree.
So on these plein air excursions, are you generally alone or do you go out with friends?
With friends,
Yeah.
often, but once I get into a spot I'll go by myself.
Yeah.
I suppose a couple of times a year I go out with other painter friends. So I'm just trying to get that feel, you know, the solidarity of the trees. And they may well disappear into the painting, but that sort of heaviness of those limbs that come down and that trunk that actually roots itself into the ground. And interestingly, they're unlike so many other trees where you do have roots, aerial roots and strong roots coming out at the base, these go straight down into the ground. I think that they're looking for water.
It's really just sketching with the gesso.
Yes. I'm just going to drop in some light and darks now, just so that I can feel what's happening in the shadow areas.
Really just using it very much like a wash.
Yes. In a way, it's almost like watercolours.
Yeah.
And I love the drips that happen. So even though you can create it, and I do in the oil paints, you get some gorgeous drips that happen with the watercolours by just letting it drop in.
So artists like Fred Williams, I mean, what sense of Fred's work influenced you to be where you are now?
Oh, he's got the most wonderful sense of colour. Of all the Australian landscape artists, you can't go past Fred Williams. His landscapes, his distant landscapes, the colours are just quite magical. And he also layers. He has this, he uses oils to layer upon layer of paint. But I find that depth, that colour that comes from within the painting is really produced mostly by having layers of paint.
And also Turner.
Oh, Turner's a fabulous artist to look at for anyone, and his wonderful sense of light that he produces, light and shade, but his sense of light is quite spectacular, and really that's what the Australian landscape's all about, isn't it?
Yeah, I've noticed in a number of the pieces that you do that there's this wonderful inflection or a moment of light sort of piercing through into the landscape. It just sort of centres on a moment or a spot.
Yes, and that's really what you're trying to achieve. I think that's what gives the magic to a painting. So I'm not worrying about these drips unless they go too far, but because I really like that unexpected piece, that the things that happen within the painting itself. That's why I always think that the painting dictates what it's going to look like in the end.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, what you do now in comparison to what you used to do as an illustrator, which was very tight, you've obviously developed a process that's quite loose now.
Yes, I still find that I have to go back to large canvases. If I start to do small canvases, I have to do them with a big brush because it's very easy to tighten up, and that's death to a good painting, I think. So I'm just going to drop in some colour here to start suggesting the outback.
And that's a Matisse paint that you've got?
Yes, they have a very good range of colours in the tinted gessos. So I'll leave that and let it dry and then go for another layer on top when that's dried.
Sure. Okay, Sandra, now that is the Porter's paints.
That's right, yes.
They're great looking colours, aren't they?
Yes, this one's called Gusto.
Yeah, okay.
And it's got a lovely sort of warm Australian earthy feel to it, but it's quite strong, so I do like to layer it back a little bit.
It's appropriately named.
Yeah.
I mean, you were a designer, an illustrator in the UK in the fashion industry as well.
Yes, exactly.
Was that underlining feeling always there for you to want to be an artist?
Well, I used to work in watercolours in the fashion illustration, and so in a way that was quite satisfying. You were able to use that the watercolour technique, and in a way this is a watercolour technique in another medium.
A lot of the work that you also do, Sandra, focuses on man's attempt to control the landscape, and you've got one piece that I think is a beautiful piece called House Among the Trees, which is out near Hill End, which is where Russell Drysdale used to do a lot of his work as well. Can you tell me a little bit more about that? It's the old shack and the flowers, but the deterioration and the decaying structures are fantastic.
If you've never been there, it's an old gold mining town, and the houses are falling into disrepair. At one time there were 50,000 people in that town, and now there's 100 people. So all of the old churches and schools and hotels are still there, along with the old cottages that artists and various people, the population of 100 live in. But it's now controlled by the National Trust, so nothing can change. And it is like walking back in time. It's the most beautiful spot.
There's another one called Shutting Up Shop, which looks very similar to the Cricketers, the piece that Drysdale did. It may have even been the building that he painted in the first place.
Well, it may have been, actually, yeah. Yes.
And also the address where you're at, as well in St Leonards in Sydney, you're at an art space called Me, and there are a group of artists actually in this particular complex. There's studios literally everywhere as you walk through.
Yes, there's 4 artists here in this space, and down the road there's another 8 artists in another studio space.
If anybody wants to find out what your address is, they can just go to sandrablackburne.com.
Yes.
And they can see where you are,
yes,
and obviously see the fantastic work that this lady does as well. And you've also been selling a lot overseas. I mean, you've sold pieces to America and Canada, and one painting that I particularly like is called Shifting Sands, which is an aerial view looking down on Australia. Fantastic piece.
Yes, Fred Williams did a lot of aerial views in his later life, and it gives you the sense of vastness that Australia is. It also gives you a wonderful perspective on the colours and the shapes, though it's such flat plains, but then shapes become nuanced and a very subtle Turner-esque sort of style.
And another couple of pieces that you sold to people in Bermuda, and that's Timelines 1 and 2. Can you tell me a bit more about those?
They were taken from some pylons that were in Redland Bay in Queensland, and I was staying with a friend up there and did a whole lot of sketches because I had this beautiful old group of pylons that were rusting and going back into the water. But they were like a whole group of people at a bus stop. They intrigued me because they were grouped so beautifully.
All right, Sandra, well, you're moving along there, but we might let you have some time to yourself so you continue to work, and we'll come back shortly.
Great.
Now, you're also a very avid and strong environmentalist as well. And
I am, yes.
seeing with what's going on in the world these days, I mean, how do you feel about fracking and things like that?
It upsets me dreadfully, really. I think the fact that it destroys the environment, and it's very few of the companies that do the fracking or the mining ever repatriate the land in the way it should be, and so we're left with these huge desert spaces. Even though the environment is really good at regenerating, you can kill it, and to the extent that there's nothing there but desert. So, and I've seen that around the world, and it would be a terrible thing to do that in Australia, wouldn't it?
Yeah, well, you know, unfortunately, what do you do against big money? Yeah. But I mean, part of your mission statement as well is to use your art to make people aware of how fragile the landscape is as well.
Yes, and that is my aim, to through the beauty, hopefully, of the art, that you can get people involved and say, oh, I love that, and then let them know the story behind the painting and where you painted it from.
Yeah, definitely. So very much the same as the Barrier Reef.
Oh, yes.
Like, most people just aren't aware of what's going on.
Look, I am amazed that we don't do anything more, that the general public aren't in a position to do something, but our hands are tied. We don't seem to have any say in the matter, and decisions are made without us, without our involvement. So
Democracy is really not alive.
yeah, that's what I feel sometimes.
And some of the galleries that you work with in this wonderful city of Sydney, you exhibit in Depot 2 Gallery, which is at Dank Street at Waterloo.
Yes.
And obviously at the Me Art Space, which is what we're in at Atkinson Street in St Leonards.
That's right, I've had quite a few exhibitions here, solo and group exhibitions.
Great spot too, it's right on the street.
Yes, yes, you do need some window space so that people can walk past and see your work in the window.
Yeah, see what's going on. And it's a great area. This is a fantastic incubator in St Leonards for artists. And then the Willoughby Council's been right behind you and doing a number of things over the years.
Yes, they've been very supportive over the years. They've offering their space below the council for artists for exhibitions for a couple of weeks, and really reasonably or not charging anything. So, but of course the incinerator space is a proper gallery, so you do get involved there. And
you've got an upcoming show.
Yes.
With them as well.
Yes,
excellent.
That's right.
One of the pieces that's going to be in there, which I really love, which is this ray of light shining across from the desert in the back. It's called Passing Lake Menindee. I think that is a fantastic piece. The atmosphere in that's just amazing.
Yes. When I travelled up to Broken Hill by train, and passing the train, or as the train passed the lake, you see all this flat desert mud area with dead trees in the foreground, just miles of dead trees, and just on the horizon this glimpse of blue, so quite really atmospheric, and it was late at night, so you had that lovely feeling of the shaft of sun just coming across the plains of the lake.
It's fantastic. I mean, the way that you play with light on those one areas, it's the same as the evening desert landscape, and just that ray of light shining through onto the ground looks fantastic.
Yes, yes.
Well, with all these beautiful landscapes and seascapes that you do, what would be the most favourite location for you in the country?
I'd have to say anything west. Hill End is a fabulous place, fabulous spot, because it's so multi-dimensional. It's got all those lovely falling down houses and overgrown trees and bracken, but it's also got country very close to it, so you can spend 3 weeks there and not paint the same thing twice.
Yeah.
So it's really good in that way.
And then one of those pictures that you've actually done out there is Silent Witness, which is the building basically watching nature retake it over again.
Yes, yes. Well, I feel those old buildings are a witness to where man has been, and they're slowly crumbling back into the landscape, but they are a witness to what's happened before. It's just quite emotional, really. I think the feeling of those houses disappearing, and it tells of, for me anyway, broken dreams, lost ideals that never eventuated. I think that the landscape tells a lot about where man has been as well. Yeah. And also a lot of my paintings have bits of old barbed wire crossing over each other and old fences falling down. So that's the sort of thing that, it's really, nature has defeated man in many parts of Australia, particularly Flinders Ranges and those western parts, those dry, arid areas.
Now, some of the things that you do within your work are the representation of light and atmosphere, and you've been putting that blue into those gum trees. And part of white gum trees is that they will reflect the blue of the sky in what they do. It's an amazing phenomenon. What blue? When do you put it in?
Yeah. This is a gorgeous blue. It's cobalt blue, so it's got so much life going for it. It's supposedly a cool blue, but it's not as deep, and it doesn't have the red that ultramarine has. Reflects brilliance. It's a wonderful contrast to the rest of the background, and I'm really just drawing this other tree in the cobalt. I don't want to define the tree in the same way that the others are defined. I just want to have that feeling that it's there. It's the coming and going again.
Uh-huh.
So in a ghostly sort of way, I guess.
Sure.
But yes, if I'd used ultramarine, it would die. It would be much darker, and the painting would be softer, but it wouldn't, I suppose, reflect that Australian landscape.
But we've got such a bright sky in Australia as well. In fact, it can be fairly harsh, the light sometimes.
It's very difficult. It gives the painter a challenge to represent the sky because it's such a strong part of any image that you see when you're looking at the landscape. Working out how to deal with that sky is always a challenge.
Absolutely.
While I was trained as an illustrator and designer at art school, my career in advertising and commercial work has meant that I've drifted away from the purity of painting and fine arts. So to keep that going and remind me of what I should be getting back to, I do go to the National Art School in Darlinghurst probably once or twice a year to do a masterclass, and that's really wonderful. Some very fine artists are working out of there as teachers.
Sure.
And it enables you to just get back into talking to other artists and painters. It's a really important part of what I do as well.
Yeah, I mean sharing that knowledge and information as well.
Yeah,
And watching you paint today, I can see that there's a lot of feel in what you do. You just sort of feel the work.
Yes, that's what painting's all about really, feeling how you go. And I try not to be too prescriptive. The painting just takes you along with it, and it sort of tells you which way it wants you to go. The nice thing about the palette knife is that it gives you a texture and a depth that you can overlay on top of the thinner layers.
All right, Sandra, well, you've made some great progress on this piece, but because of the beauty of television, we can now screen the final piece. Marvellous. Okay, guys, fantastic day here in St Leonards in Sydney. Now, Me Art Space.
Correct. 25 Atchison Street, St Leonards.
Okay, and your website address is?
sandrablackburne.com.
Yeah, so come in and see what Sandra's doing, and actually come along. I mean, this is sort of pretty well in the dead centre of North Sydney. It's a fantastic art space. There's some very, very talented people in this building, so I would recommend that you come along and see the guys. Behind me, one of Sandra's beautiful pieces. I mean, I love what she does with the light, the storm out in the back. It's a fantastic piece, that one. But come down and see the guys, and particularly Sandra, of course, a very talented lady, and we've had a fantastic day here today. Also, you can come and see us as Facebook and YouTube as well. Many, many subscribers, so come in and say hi, and also come into our website at colourinayourlife.com.au. But thank you once again.
Great, thank you.
Fantastic day. Please come to St Leonards and see these people. They are absolutely wonderful. And before we go, remember, as I always say, make sure you put some colour in your life. See you guys. Bye now.
Bye.
See ya.